today I'm going to be showing you how I mixed Hertz drums in this demo. If you'd like to see the full mix breakdown where I go into the guitar tone, bass tone, lead tone, mix bus compression, and all that good stuff, that'll be available on my Patreon. I'm also going to be doing a composition breakdown of this song, so that should be out in the next week or two. I'm going to go into how I wrote everything, how I wrote the guitar riffs, how I programmed the drums, how I programmed the bass. I'll leave the link in the description for that. So let's get into it. The guys at Hertz Drums were kind enough to send me their drum software for me to test out, and I was actually blown away with the quality of these. They were super mix ready, so I didn't have to do too much processing at all. So this is how the drums sound out of the box. I'm using the rock preset from the white pack. Let's see how that sounds. So right off the bat, everything sounds great. The only thing I really wanted to do was just beef up the shells a bit so they're a bit more punchy. So now I'll compare that with my finished drum sound. So yeah, it sounds great. I really love this kit. So the first thing I wanted to do is multi-output these drums into my DAW. So how I did that was I went up to this routing button, clicked that, and then as you can see, we have all the mics here laid out at the bottom. We can slide through. Now what I did is I took the DI signal from the kick, put that to 1, the snare I put to 3, tom 4. So I just basically went through chronologically, gave them all their separate output. So in Cubase, if we just have an instrument track, we can hit this little drop down here. And now you can see all of our tracks. So yeah, we got the kick. The second one's a null. I didn't use the second output. Just went right to 3. So we got snare on 3, tom high, all the toms. And then we got the hat, ride, crashes. And then we got the overhead, ambient mics, and the reverb. And multi-outputting the drums like this just gives us a lot more control. So now I can kind of go in to the kick and put whatever plugins I want on it. So let's bring up the kick first. I'll turn off all my processing. All right, so here's what the raw kick sounds like. Now there's one change I did inside the drum program, and that's the little envelope section down here. What I did is I set the curve to fast fade out here, and then I put this to all, and then what I'm doing is changing the envelope shape. So originally the envelope was set something like this. What I did is I took the decay and brought it all the way down, and then I'm bringing it to like 300 in and about there. What that does is gets rid of all that decay. As you can hear, it's much longer. It's a lot tighter with that filter on. And I think that's the only drum I did this on. The rest of the drums died out pretty quick, which is cool with me. So now let's get into this kick processing. First up, I got a Pro Q3. It's a pretty common move I like to do. I'm just dipping out the low mids. 10 dB, quite a bit. So it's just really emphasizing that 60 Hertz region instead of the low mids like the 100, 150 region. And then I'm adding a tiny bit of attack around 5K and then dipping out with a low shelf around 130 just to get rid of a bit of that sub. It's a bit too subby. And now let's move on to this Pro C2. I'm just doing some compression on the kick, aiming for about 3 dB. I got the attack around 30 to really emphasize that transient, release around 120. And yeah, just kind of bringing the threshold down, ratio at 4, and I'm aiming for 3 dB. So that's making that front end attack come through a bit louder. Next I got a C4. This was specifically to tame the double kicks in this section. This was specifically to tame the kick drums in this section. So what this is just a multi-band compressor. I have the low band set from 0 to like 120. And then we have the release set at 500. So what this means is when there's a lot of low end buildup, it'll just duck that whole band down and it won't have time to release because the release is really slow. So you'll see it'll just kind of dip down the bass just for that double bass section. So that really helps the mix not become too subby when there's a lot of double kicks. Next we got a JST clip. I'm just clipping it up 6 dB and I think I'm trimming it back down a little bit. Yeah, minus 3.8 on the trim, just to get more volume and a bit of saturation. And then lastly, we just have a gain plugin from Kilohertz. Just thought it was a bit too loud, just turned it down a little bit. And that's our final kick, close mic. Next we got the snare. First up, I wanted to add a bit of attack to this, so I put on a Pro C2, doing basically the exact same settings as the kick. 30 millisecond attack, 120 millisecond release, and we're aiming for about like 6 dB. The ratio at 4, so that's just adding a bit of punch to it. Next we got the Pro Q3. I'm doing a bit of a high boost. And yeah, it had quite a bit of fundamental already, so I didn't even touch that. Lastly, we got a JST clip. I'm just clipping it up. Same kind of philosophy as the kick. Adding a bit of saturation, beefing up the snare a bit. Now let's move on to the toms. All the close mic toms I didn't touch. I just routed them to a toms bus down here. And then on that bus, we just got some EQ to start. So I'll find a tom section. So here I'm kind of doing a similar thing with the kicks where I'm cutting some of those low mids above the fundamental. So that's at 300, and then we got a little dip. There's a kind of plasticky attack around 2000. That kind of stuff. So I'm just ducking that out. So it cleans it up quite a bit. And then this low frequency kind of build up was bothering me a bit, so I threw on a Pro MB, and now I'm doing a cool thing with this. I have it in expand mode, so that when the tom initially hits, it boosts the low end only for an instance. So you'll see that in action. So that low end is dipped before and after the hit, but it comes in right when the tom hits. This is without, and then with. Really cleans it up. All right, that's all I did for toms. As you can see, it's just really minimal processing. I'm not even doing external reverb or anything. I'm using the in-house reverb they supply. Now with hat, I have nothing on. Ride, we just got a bit of EQ, taking out some low end. The crashes, so for the crashes, I'm just starting off with a low cut around 211 there. Next, we got a high shelf. So I like to use this Pultec emulation made by Waves. I usually set the high frequency around 10 or 12, and then I'm just boosting about 4 dB. So it's just adding a bit of brightness. Next, I have Soothe. This really helps tame the resonant frequencies in the cymbals. So this is exactly what I'm cutting out. So I have the sharpness all the way up and the selectivity all the way up and the depth around 1, and I'm on soft mode. Next we got the overheads. So similar kind of processing, low cut around 150. There's a lot of kick in this overhead mic, which I kind of like. It's really in phase with the close mic kick, so it adds a nice character. Next we got the Pultec. So I'm doing similar thing. I'm boosting 4 dB at 10K. You're here without. Just adding a subtle bit of brightness. Next we got the L1. I'm just kind of chopping off some of the peaks. So you hear if I bypass this, that snare will come through a lot louder. But I want most of the punch coming from the snare close mic, so I'm aiming to kind of reduce it with this plugin. Next we got the room mics. Starting off here with a low cut around 250. And then same thing, we have a Pultec 4 dB at 10K to brighten everything up. And then here with the reverb, this reverb sounds great. This is the in-house reverb they have, and we can control that for each drum with this fader right here. So on the kick, I reduced it quite a bit. On the snare, I have it pretty cranked here. So how it works, it's an XY slider. So if you go up on the X, that'd be more reverb, and it'd be farther to the right. And if you go up on the Y, then you're adding in more room. So this would be the lowest, and this would be the highest up here. So if we listen to this reverb mics, it's mostly the snare coming through. And then moving on to our drum bus, I have the Townhouse compressor. I have it set to a ratio of 4, attack of 0.3, a release of 0.1, and then we're just aiming for about like only a dB or 2 when the kick and snare hit. So that's just adding a subtle bit of glue and punch to the drums. And that covers the final drum sound for the mix. So let's hear that one more time, soloed. And that covers how I mix these drums. If you'd like to see how I mix the entire song, so all the guitars and bass and leads, then you can find that over on my Patreon, where I do a full extensive mix walkthrough of this whole project. And with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like these. And be sure to pick up a copy of Hertz drums. They're doing a 40% off sale on their website right now, so I definitely recommend picking those up. I'll see you guys next time.